A question asked courageously, answered honestly, and lived authentically can change your whole life. For me, that question was, how can I use what I have, what I love, and what I know to bless the lives of others? The School for Good Living and this podcast are one answer to that question. Hi, I'm Brian Miller. I know that the world can work for everyone, but that it won't until it works for you. I've created this to help you make the difference you were born to make. It's a series of conversations with thought leaders who are moving humanity forward. And in each episode, I explore their lives and the work they do. I also ask them to break down how they've gotten their books written, published, and read. This podcast is all about exploring the magic and mystery, and sometimes the misery, of the creative process. So if you have a mission, a message, and the motivation to share it, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the School for Good Living. Today, my guest is Kenji Williams, a composer and director for multimedia live theater, mixed reality, and interactive data visualization. What does that mean? Well, I met Kenji at an event in San Francisco where he showed me through VR a view of the planet Earth that just blew my mind. It helped me to experience not only the beauty, but the interconnectivity, the fragility of planet Earth, and I was absolutely blown away. Since that time, I have learned more from Kenji, and this conversation was awesome. He talks about his journey as a multidisciplinary artist, beginning at age 6 as a classically trained violinist, the son of a Buddhist and a Quaker. As he was raised, he pursued film. He also became a DJ, was in the rave culture, made a documentary about indigenous rituals, lived for a while in the psychedelic culture, did a artistic production with artist Alex Gray, also worked some with Ken Wilber. You will find this conversation useful, interesting, inspiring. So with that, please enjoy this conversation with Kenji Williams. Kenji, welcome to the School for Good Living podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. So we met earlier this year. I think it might have been the last day of May. We met in San Francisco at an event that was produced by Forbes magazine. And I'm really interested to know, you were the first person I met when I walked in. We were at an event at a private residence in the Bay Area, and I walked up 4 stories, and you were standing right there at the top of the stairs, and you looked friendly. I would have introduced myself anyway, but we started talking, and I really enjoyed getting to know you just a little bit that night and then online. But will you tell me first, what were you doing at that event? Why were you there, and how did it go, by the way?
So I was invited to present Bella Gaia as a live thing. I was actually doing a small performance at the entrance as people were walking in, and then was sort of giving people some VR experiences of our Bella Gaia, of our show in VR. And I was really just there to meet people. I was invited graciously by Jennifer King, the owner of the house. And it was sort of a pre-conference get-together at her house.
Awesome. So you just mentioned Bella Gaia, and of course, we're going to talk a lot more about that. I think people who don't already know about it will be interested to learn. Before we do, though, I want to ask you a question I love to open most of my interviews with, which is, what's life about?
Starting big. I think life is about making connections with each other, with other things, both physical and metaphysical, and really evolving, learning. We're here to learn and to progress and to become better people and to get to that next level, no matter what level you're at. And so, I've tried my life to really translate that into every part of my life, including my career. And so Bella Gaia in itself is translating and communicating the interconnectedness of our planet. It's all about those connections. And it gives you this visceral, emotional, journey-like exploration of the interconnectedness of the planet and how we are connected to other things, everything. So, yeah, perhaps in a nutshell, it's about connection.
I happen to think so too. And I know it often occurs like creating connections, but at the same time, it might be simply realizing the connections that already exist, right? Which is part of what I love about your work. But let me ask you, when you meet someone for the first time, and I realize the answer to this might change a little bit from context to context or person to person, but generally, if you meet somebody and they ask you, who are you and what do you do? What do you tell them?
It's I take out my phone and just show them a video trailer. It's really difficult to explain in words. I mean, an elevator pitch, it would be just, I'm a multimedia theatrical immersive design director and producer, of which, my biggest project currently is Bella Gaia, Beautiful Earth. And so but I always inevitably bring out my phone and just show them, and then they get it, so this is a challenge. Well, it's both the advantage and the challenge of Bella Gaia is that it's very unique, but there isn't really a reference point for people to really see it. And it's becoming easier actually with things like VR, and the term immersive is now becoming quite well known, and people are really starting to understand that sort of vernacular. And so immersive is it's experiential. So the whole point is that it's not supposed to be described with words. So yeah, I try to explain as best I can, and that it's about transformation. What does help is the story behind Bella Gaia, which tell me that. I've read about it, but of course, people listening might not know. And I understand you traveled to Kazakhstan at one point, and I think that's part of this story. And I'm getting the sense that you have a background, like maybe you have a love for space, or maybe you missed your calling as an astronaut, or something like that. Tell me all about that. Yes. Well, like many boys, as a boy, I was fascinated by space. Star Wars was like a transformational movie for me. And it was a dream to be an astronaut or a pilot. But I guess I'm sort of translating that in the art world. I was classically trained in violin since I was 6 years old, very serious with music, and got into composition in high school and electronics in high school, but as well visual communication. And so I actually ended up going to film school for college and university.
Where did you go?
I split my undergrad between York University in Toronto and Boulder, Colorado, CU Boulder.
What was the biggest thing you took away from film school, by the way?
It was really about working with talented people. I learned way more from the talented students than I did from the teachers.
Like what?
Well, it was really, film, like many things, you learn from doing, and if you're doing surrounded by peers that are also talented, producing great ideas on the moment and just see creativity in action, that is really how you learn. That's what's the most fun thing about creativity is creating with others and like inspiring each other. I think you need to be around inspiring people to be inspired and to sort of reciprocate that energy. So
yeah,
I really and it was a great balance actually. York is sort of like Hollywood North, very big sound stages and lots of equipment. Boulder is this experimental niche. Stan Brakhage, who has passed, but he was sort of the father of the film department there, and he's sort of this very well-known experimental film maker. So CU Boulder is known for their experimental, like small experimental nature.
Yeah, it's kind of its own colony, right? Almost.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so you got Star Wars, you got the violin from 6 years old, you got film school somewhere in there, you wanted to be a pilot or an astronaut. So keep going.
So I was releasing this project called World Spirit, which was this multimedia show that we produced live in Oakland, California. It was animating this painter, Alex Gray, and his artwork, with me directing and producing the whole show. We did it for a live audience of 2,000. We documented it, released it as a DVD.
How did you get connected with Alex, and why did this become a live thing? I mean, I know Alex has worked with Tool, right? But there's not many visual artists or many painters that I know of that are like, hey, let's get an audience, right? And connect it with some kind of experience. Tell me, how did all that come about?
That was really another really interesting story. I was living in San Francisco at the time at this crazy and awesome artist warehouse, like collective.
What was it called?
Infinite Chaos.
Okay. I'm guessing that's probably an appropriate name.
Yeah. Actually, it was actually very well run for a name like Infinite Chaos. Very, very talented artists.
Does it still exist?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. It was in a Tenderloin. I mean, San Francisco has gone through a really big gentrification, as you know. But a lot of great artists are still. I'm connected with them. But anyway, we did this almost impromptu, last minute collaboration. I was in contact with Alex, and we were like, "Hey, let's do some live performance art. I'll put together some loops and music, and project some of your paintings as a slideshow sort of a thing. And, let's just invite some people." And so we did this really last minute at this underground warehouse, just word of mouth. And I think like 100 people showed up. And basically from that underground thing, in the audience was a sponsor who came forward to me and said, "I'd like to sponsor you to make this on a production level and document it and sell it as a DVD."
That's amazing. And somebody you didn't know before?
Yes, right.
And one showing, just the first time you do this?
The first time, and it was just very rough, like very last minute sort of a thing. And so we produced this live show for 2,000 people in Oakland. It was a lot of production and animation of Alex's artwork. And he does a lot of spoken word. He's written a lot of poetry. So we sort of organized the evening into a sort of narrative. And so there was some structure to it. And it was extremely successful. And we were releasing this as a DVD. And then at that time, this was, I think, around 2005, I was living in Tokyo at the time, releasing the Japanese version. And at that time, I was also performing at very large outdoor raves, techno parties in the Japanese countryside mountain. I mean, the scene at that time was amazing.
Yeah, I saw some videos of you on YouTube where you seem to have really, in an innovative way, merged the violin with the DJ and electronic. Tell me, how did that evolution come about? How did you get into that?
So I was, all through film school. Actually, I started my own label in college and was very much involved in the underground rave scene, both in Toronto and in Denver. And then my film, my senior film project was a documentary about rave culture and indigenous culture, the meaning of ritual and music in a culture, whether it's Aboriginal or future, or modern. What
was the biggest thing you learned from doing that project?
Well, that was, again, a massively transformative project. I mean, it extended well beyond my graduation. Actually, it turned into this personal transformative journey where I traveled through the United States to the Dakotas, went to reservations, interviewed elders, attended several powwows and Sundances.
Any vision quests?
Did not do a vision quest, but perhaps I mean, my involvement in a Sundance as a firekeeper, that was in Oregon. I mean, I just had this crazy transformative experience.
Tell me about it. Well, I mean, I've heard of Sundances, but I've never been to one. I've never participated in one.
Oh goodness. I mean, it is, their most sacred ritual of the Lakotas. And, it is 3 days and nights of dancing outdoors, to essentially to almost sacrifice your blood for your ancestors, for your loved ones, for the sick, but also to renew the cycle of life, giving back to nature. But it's serious because you're not actually drinking or eating food for 3 days and nights. I mean, it's
Wow.
exhausting.
Yeah, that sounds
and
like
almost dangerous.
Yeah, I was gonna. It could, so, if I understand right, you're merging these indigenous traditions and this ritual that has a long history with what some might see as this kind of modern, self-indulgent, kind of escapist rave culture, where it's almost the meeting of these two tradition, an ancient tradition with the modern search, I suppose. Is that? I mean, how did that occur for you?
I think rave culture it's often or it was misinterpreted in many ways, in the sense that there was the commercial side, but then there was very much of an underground, actually more spiritual side of rave culture, of techno culture, of trance culture. And so I was really more involved in that underground side, which for me was really the beginning of my spiritual journey, I think, in that, yes, I was raised, my father was Quaker, actually, my mother Buddhist, Japanese. And so
how did they meet? How did a Quaker and a Buddhist get together?
They met in Japan at a social work site. I think my dad was there helping, volunteering to set up shelters, I think, for asylum, or some sort of it was some sort of social activity, good works program.
Wow.
Where he met my mom there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So at that time, my dad is a total hippie, and my mother, for Japanese at that time to leave Japan and get married with a foreigner was quite radical. So she's quite open-minded as well herself. They've both joined me at Burning Man.
Amazing.
So I have unusual parents, and love them very much. But yeah, so for me, rave culture, including the psychedelics attached with it, was very much of the beginning of my spiritual journey, bringing into account both my Buddhist background and Quaker Christian background. And which is, sort of how I got introduced to Alex Gray's artwork. Very, very psychedelic, transformative. So this documentary was about the spiritual potential of rave culture. So it wasn't really, it was very critical of rave culture too, because there's a lot of escapism and drug abuse in that world as well. But I was really highlighting more the people, the smaller communities. And I highlighted one community, for example, called Moon Tribe in LA, where it was very non-commercial. They would go out into the desert every full moon. It's already connected to the moon cycle. And it was very family run, but it was every full moon. They would go out to the desert, set up a sound system, and dance all night. Sounds
amazing.
Yeah. So, and these people were very, wanting to almost redefine the idea of a commune, where it's not the 60s version of the commune, but it's okay, we all have our normal lives, we have jobs, we have normal lives, but we also have this strong community that is really needed in this modern, disenfranchised and disconnected world. So this documentary explores that, but also in my visitations to the Dakotas and these powwows and these interviews with these elders, I got some incredible quotes of Howard Badhands, for example, talking about the meaning of ritual and how humans need ritual to create community, but also in the indigenous need was really to connect to nature. It was to remind ourselves of our place in the natural world and in the universe.
Yeah.
And so this really hits to the heart of my spirit and mission in life, is always going back to this thing of, well, how do we reestablish this connection with the natural world? And look, indigenous peoples have done this for eons. They have these rituals that allow us to reconnect with the natural world, to understand the dialogue between humans and nature. Yeah. And our place in the natural world.
How effectively, just to interrupt real quick, how effectively do you think this documentary how effective is it in helping its viewers make that connection or find it within themselves? I'm wondering, now that you've gone through the journey, you've done the piece, it exists, it's been a number of years.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now. I uploaded recently at YouTube. It's like 15 years ago, but I uploaded recently. It's called Moment Utopia.
Moment Utopia. People can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's still like 16 millimeter, even some 8 millimeter film mixed with some video. It's like you can get the age of it.
Yeah, and what kind of response have you had to it?
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. I won several awards for it, and I really, I would go to parties and just hand out this movie for free to people on the dance floor.
Awesome.
And people still now today remember it, and I get just random emails saying like, oh, I first was introduced to you like so many years ago through this movie called Moment Utopia. I mean, it's really quite amazing. But this was really also how, this led to World Spirit and then Bella Gaia. I mean, these artists like Alex Gray really, they valued this movie, this Moment Utopia movie. They could really relate to it. I was also connected with great thinker and philosopher Ken Wilber through Moment Utopia. So it was really a door opener for me to a new world. And so, yeah, so let's see. So with World Spirit, this Alex Gray, this was being released in Japan. I was performing, with my violin, with dance music. I was producing dance music, ambient music, sort of progressive house, trance sort of stuff. I released some music on John Digweed's Bedrock label, and also released music with Japanese labels. And then I get this random phone call from this .com millionaire, 30-something guy. He helped start LiveDoor in Japan, which was like a Yahoo of Japan. And he is a raver. And he's like, I'm a big fan of yours. I also really love Alex Gray. I love this DVD. Let's have lunch. And so when we had lunch, he was like, yeah, I'm paying $20 million to go to the space station as a space tourist. And as I'm up there, I'd like to collaborate with you somehow. So it was not your typical lunch meeting.
No.
And so I was like, oh my goodness, seriously? And he says, so to get things started, let me sponsor you on this trip to see my friend Greg Olson fly on the Soyuz to the space station in Kazakhstan. So we basically went on this epic journey. This was all a program, a business through this company called Space Adventures, which is the first space tourist company that basically leased a seat. There's 3 seats on the Soyuz, 2 for Russian cosmonauts. 1 was basically leased to Space Adventures for paying tourists. The price was $20 million to go to the space station.
And he did it, didn't he?
Well, actually, so that's another story. He actually ended up not going, but the trip to Kazakhstan to see the launch of Greg Olson on the Soyuz, that was, that trip was what inspired Bella Gaia. So we did go on this trip. It was just a memorable experience going on these Russian Soviet era like private military planes that inside was just like the smell. I just remember, I mean, it's like wooden velvet, you know, like really, I mean, it was like,
Just like you think a Russian fighter jet would smell.
right. And we were given, you know, a private tour, you know, of Baikonur, which is the launch area, and we're watched the launch from 200 meters away, which is a lot closer than the public viewing spot, which is I think a kilometer away. And so it was very close, very loud, very bright, very powerful. I brought my violin actually to serenade the rocket at T-minus 30 seconds,
Wow.
which is also on YouTube. You can just search Kenji Williams Soyuz Launch. And so after that launch, we went to Moscow to mission control, where we saw the Soyuz dock with the ISS, and really learned of the Russian resourcefulness of. I mean, I think at the time I could see down below me in mission control, they were like still using MS-DOS, I think.
Wow.
And you know, the Russian space program's budget is equal to the NASA's landscaping budget. And so, you know, just the Russian, you know, spirit of being able to do a lot with very little was in full view. And as part of the tour, we ended up in Star City, which is where they train the astronauts. And at that time was actually right after the Columbia accident, the shuttle accident. So NASA was collaborating and working with the Russian space program, and the Russians were helping NASA astronauts train and go on the Soyuz because the shuttle was grounded. So at that time, there was an American area to Star City where we basically had a barbecue thing with some American astronauts. One of them was Mike Fink, who I just started talking with. It was the first time meeting an astronaut. I was very excited. And this was the moment of the seed and genesis of Bella Gaia, where I asked Mike, what is it that changed when you went to space? And he told me how before he went to space, he was a planetary scientist, and his favorite planets were Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. But once he went to space and looked out the window and saw our Earth with this atmosphere just 20 miles thick, this borderless living blue bubble of life floating in the blackness of space, he had this life-changing experience. The overview effect is what it's called. And he came back to Earth with a much greater appreciation for our planet.
Tell me about that. I read that term, the overview effect, and I had never heard it before. But tell me a little bit about what that means and why that was so impactful for Mike.
So it's actually a book written by Frank White called The Overview Effect. It's basically documenting, you know, many astronauts who have this life-changing experience, seeing the Earth from space. It's almost like a religious experience, a life-changing experience that is became basically, you know, my inspiration of how could I simulate that transformative effect to those of us who can't yet go to space. And so this was really my meeting Mike, and his story of transformation was my inspiration to figure out how can I bring this, how can I democratize this very exclusive transformative experience to the rest of the world. You know, God, it's desperately needed right now. And what if that can be translated? I mean, yeah, you know, there can be drug-induced or other ways to do it, but, you know, I really, actually coming from the underground rave scene, I really became inspired to figure out more mainstream ways of communicating these more esoteric topics and mainstream ways of transformation.
Yeah, because helping people achieve non-ordinary states of consciousness is definitely one way, right? And it sounds like you'd been down that path to some degree, and seen its power. Yet it sounds like, and what I'm getting from what I've seen of your work online and the little bit I know of you, that you wanted to find something that could be more embraced by especially mainstream society and integrated into our science, the way we teach science, technology, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Like all of this. And one thing I love too is I came across something that was either in something you wrote or on a page associated with you. It was one of the astronauts who said something that was right in line with things I've heard great spiritual teachers of all ages talk about, especially the Dalai Lama, talking about look beyond differences, look beyond nationality, look beyond race, look beyond, any other differentiating factor. And this astronaut had said something like, when we were in space, the first day we were pointing to our countries.
Yes.
And the second and third day we were pointing to our continent. And by the end of the week, we were all just, like in awe of this one planet.
Just pointing at one Earth.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. So why is it so important to you? I mean, why, basically this is your life's work of helping people understand the oneness, right? That we are with this Earth that we're privileged to inhabit. But why does that matter to you? Why is it so important?
I can't seem to escape it in everything that I do in my life. I'm born here to deliver this message. Because in everything that I've done, it has always come back to this message and mission. And I don't know, I've always really, I've been a lover of nature and a lover of human culture as well at the same time. I don't take the stance that many environmentalists take, that humans should just be eliminated from the earth. I think we do play a role in the magic of the universe. And I think that, we are just so caught up in the drama of secular life and of these differences that we construct around ourselves that complicate things. And
the pursuit of materialism, right? Of accumulation, consumption, right? And I saw something in a video you produced online that I really loved what you said. If I can just read 3 sentences. Bella Gaia. So first of all, it's a profoundly global vision of the interconnectedness of our world. Bella Gaia is an emotional experience of the planet that's beyond words. Instead of telling people that the Earth is alive, we can just show you, right? Which I love. And I didn't say this earlier in our conversation, but when I met you that day in San Francisco, as I was on my way out, you had established this VR in the garage. And I realized people listening to this, they might have enjoyed, hearing your story. It's very interesting. It's unique. I think a lot of people wish, myself included, we could have been along with you, for parts of the journey. But I suspect that people still might be like, I don't get it. Like, is it just a YouTube video, or can I watch it, on Netflix or something? And I understand that you produced it and you still are in dome theaters around the country with like a live orchestra. But you're also, and you can correct me or expand on that, but you've gone to showing it, like helping people to experience this through virtual reality, which I got a taste of just for 2 minutes. And I was blown away because it really was like I was an astronaut and I had a view of the planet that, I've seen posters of, the Earth from space and stuff like that, but I'd never been immersed in it. And it was really, really cool. And it's something I wish everyone would have that experience. But tell me a little bit more about the Dome productions and a little bit more about what you're doing with VR.
Yeah. So the production. So after meeting Mike, it was really a couple of years of gestation. I didn't know what I wanted to produce, what it would look like, how I'd get there, and eventually, I became friends with a person at the Natural History Museum here in New York who was developing this software that is a flight simulator of the universe for planetariums.
Kenji, let me jump in and just ask one question, and I want to pick up right where you are. But what I love is I love your what I would call courage. It might not be courage. It might be, stubbornness or just sheer willpower or whatever. But the fact that you're saying like, I didn't even know what I wanted or how I would get there or what it was. Like, I think a lot of people give up at that point. They're like, yeah, I don't know. And then they just go back to whatever, who's playing football this weekend or whatever obligations they have. What I want to know, and I think people might benefit from who are listening, is how did you persevere in the face of this ambiguity, and what was your creative support system like? Like, did you have good friends, or at this time were you in any kind of artistic collective, or how did you navigate through all of that uncertainty to end up producing something that's really freaking awesome?
Oh, it's a good question, and I guess it's I don't know. I mean, it's luck, but it's also just I'm just that kind of a person. I'm a radical, almost revolutionary. I've been like this my whole life. And some people, as they get older, sort of give up or I've sort of become more, motivated to change the world. So my very nature doesn't allow me to sort of give up. And it was a very strong emotion after meeting Mike. Like, I couldn't get rid of it. And when, I really do believe in when you have something on your mind, when you're really focused on something, things emerge out of your life, out of your journey through life. They present themselves to you, and you have a choice to take up these opportunities or not, So as it went along, I was introduced to the software at my friend at Natural History Museum through a recommendation of someone else in the planetarium dome community. And then at the same time, I was very lucky. I was making these actually meditation videos for this foundation called the Foundation for Global Community, based in San Francisco. And they had a video that was similar. It was like astronaut quotes and satellite images. And I was like, I just came back from this journey in Russia. And do you mind if I just present a proposal for funding? And I was very lucky. They granted me a $50,000 grant at the time, which allowed me to take time off from everything that else I was doing and focus straight on production. So I basically started rendering out, images, orbital images of floating above the Earth with this software, which looked extremely real. Showing it to people will think I'm remote controlling a camera on a space station. It's all real satellite data that's mapped on a 3D world, but you can make it move as you like, and, like, for example, remove the clouds, which a lot of people don't realize. The real image of the Earth, a lot of it is obscured by clouds. So if you want to see the detail of the terrain, it helps to be able to remove the clouds. But you can also add literally yesterday's clouds on top of it to make it look, it's like an MRI of the planet of what's happening right now. And then, so I started building out, flight paths, rendered movies, composing the music to it, and then I started performing it here and there. And at the same time, another significant contact with NASA popped up at an underground party in DC.
That is so random.
So random. And this lady was walking around with a camera interviewing the artist, and she started interviewing me. And at that time, I was, this was on my mind. So she's like, "What are you working on now?" I was like, "I want to make an experience that simulates the overview effect." I met this astronaut. I told her the whole story, and she almost dropped the camera. She's like, "Oh my God, I work for NASA."
Wow.
So
that is amazing.
She then introduced me to her boss, and I presented the idea to the boss, and then she invited me to present in front of their top Earth scientists at NASA Goddard, which is where they process most of the Earth satellite data. And so it was, and then when I presented it at NASA, these scientists were just floored. All I did was just combine one of their produced data visualizations with music, no words, and performed as a short 5-minute sample. And they were just like jumping off the walls.
Wow.
I mean, it was a room full of frustrated earth scientists.
Nerds. Really smart people, right? But one thing I love so much about that story is that when she asked you, your answer wasn't just like, I think maybe I want to just want to keep making music, or maybe some movies, or even it wasn't as vague as like, oh, I want to do something with space. It was like, I want to do something about the overview effect, And it was like, boom, your clarity and specificity made that connection all the more powerful. I mean, that is awesome.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, like, if you really want to do something, just communicate it to people. You never know who you're going to talk to,
Yeah. And you weren't even asking her, right? You weren't saying like, can you help me, or will you help me, or do you know anyone? You were just sharing. It was like a natural self-expression, a true desire with specificity. And then boom, that's awesome. That's great. And it's proof to me, by the way, I've seen this, and I actually teach this when I work with people one-on-one or in workshops I lead, that like you said, the more we share our ideas, the more real they become, number one. And number two, people want to help. Like we're naturally predisposed when we hear someone in pain, or we hear someone who has a desire, like we want to alleviate that pain. We want to help facilitate that desire. And the story you're sharing is, for me, again, just confirmation of that fact. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, luck has a lot to do with it as well. I think these two moments were very pivotal. There's no way that I could have preconceived it or planned it in advance. So, but again, opportunities come up to you, being able to recognize them and take advantage of them is a very important part of finding your path. And so after this NASA thing, they were really understanding. I mean, I was basically, my pitch was that you have to present climate science in general, in a way that humans understand, which is not just left brain statistics, but there has to be this right brain emotional channel as part of it.
So let me explore that for just a minute. And I'm really I'm trying to be diplomatic about how I set this up. And I don't want to be a Trump basher, and I don't want to beat up people who are like global warming, climate change deniers. But what I wonder is when there's someone like, okay, because we know data alone doesn't convince, right? You can present more facts, you can shout louder, but that's not going to change somebody's perspective. Tell me, what's your view about somebody like Donald Trump? And I have this great photo. I don't know who took it, but he's in the Oval Office and he's got his arms crossed, and right behind him are these images of climate change, of global warming. And it's like it's like a little child, like a sullen child, doesn't want to believe it, is what it looks like to me, right? But where I'm going with this is with somebody, let's take him because he's conspicuous and he's vocal, but somebody who is so outspoken about the fact this isn't really happening. What do you think is effective in getting through to somebody like that?
Well, let me give you a story I directly had with a climate denier. Who, it was a NASA event on the Washington Mall for Earth Day, and we were in a dome on the mall, so it was sort of people walking through. So in that sense, I was lucky in that there was this person who happened to be walking through, and we started talking about climate change, and he was like, "Oh, I don't believe it. And it was a typical argument. And I was actually setting up for my show. And I was like, hey, why don't you just sit down and check out my show? Because I'm about to perform. And so he sat down and I performed a 20-minute, 30-minute Bella Gaia show. And afterwards, he came up to me and said, you know what? I think you just changed my mind. And he walked away.
Wow. On that topic too, by the way, one thing that I'm struck by is how there was zero making wrong. Like you weren't challenging him, you were inviting him. It was a true invitation with no expectation, no telling him, well, you're an idiot or you're wrong, or giving him facts. And I think there's something really profound about that.
I think there's problems on both sides of the argument. Yeah. And just pointing fingers of that you're a climate denier is not good enough,
Yeah. Well, the other thing about that too, and I don't I don't mean to be flippant, but I think there's something about it, is you were in a dome, right? Like there's something special about a dome already, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe, yes.
I mean, there really is. I remember reading Buckminster Fuller's biography and reading that he thought that we in the future, and maybe we still will, that we will all be living and working in domes.
Yes.
Like, it's like I'm still working for that day. The other thing about that that I'm interested to get your perspective about, because I also used the word climate change all the way until literally about 2 weeks ago when I interviewed Paul Hawken for this show. And do you know Paul, by the way?
I don't know him personally, no.
I don't.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, that was the first time I've talked to him directly, and I love that guy already. I really love that guy. But we were talking about the power and importance of language when, sharing anything. And he helped me see that to speak about it in terms of climate change is actually inherently ineffective, because climate change has been happening before humans. But he talked about global warming. Right. And I don't know why, but somewhere in the past, I shied away from the term global warming in favor of climate change. And he's like, wait, global warming is the thing that's happening. Yeah, climate change is a natural part of existence. But if we're going to be effective in communicating, maybe global warming is the more accurate term. What's your view on that?
Right. Well, I mean, there's problems with both of them, because you hear people saying, well, it's cold outside, so obviously global warming doesn't exist.
I know. That's one of the Donald Trump things that I'm like, come on, man.
and then climate change, you're right. I guess a more correct term is anthropogenic caused climate change, right? Human caused climate change, which is
right.
the proper term for it.
But nobody can pronounce that or spell it. So that one's probably not going to. Yeah.
But here's what it comes down to. Okay. I am not really here. I mean, climate change, global warming, these are still abstract concepts way out there.
Yeah.
And the best that environmentalists have, done in communicating something emotional is maybe like polar bears are dying, and like an image of a polar bear.
Yeah.
But what I am here to do is to establish relationships. I'm a relationship builder. Okay. I'm not an environmentalist, and this goes back to the indigenous peoples. Their rituals were there to establish relationship with the earth, with the universe, and make that relative and personal. Okay. And if you have a relationship with someone or something, you will naturally protect it.
Right. And care for it, nurture it.
Right. Exactly. So this is the problem with our modern culture, is we are disconnected from the natural world. I mean, maybe for those of us who have had a lot of experience in nature or camping, or, we have our relationships, but for the most part, and part of the economic system, which is also detached from correct valuation of nature, which is what's killing the earth, is, there's no feedback loop with the natural world. Yeah. And so it continues to just eat away at natural resources, and our culture, our modern systems view the earth still as a commodity, So I'm really here to establish relationship, and from that, protecting it will be natural.
Yeah. Almost inevitable, right? When the relationship, yeah.
And in the long term, that's what's needed anyway. We won't be a future civilization from regulations. We will be a future civilization from, it's the hard way. It is changing our consciousness, changing our culture. Culture is the most pervasive thing for the future. And it's not regulations. It has to be, we have to change who we are.
Yeah.
And the way that we relate to other things and the planet.
I totally agree with you. Let me totally shift gears for a moment, now a few minutes now, and ask you a series of questions that are totally unrelated to what we've been talking about.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the lightning round. Okay, so it's about 10 questions. I've designed them to be a short question. You can take as long as you want to answer them, but my aim in this portion is to minimize or even completely eliminate my commentary. Okay, so I'm going to ask the question, let you answer. So, all right, are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Number 1, please complete the following sentence using something other than a box of chocolates. Life is like a
Whirlwind with a jewel at the middle.
Okay. Number 2. What's something you wish you were better at?
Humor and comedy.
Number 3. If you were required every day for the rest of your life to wear a t-shirt with a slogan or a saying or a quote or a quip on it, what would the shirt say?
Love your mother.
Okay. Number 4. What book? You have that shirt already, don't you? Okay. Number 4. What book other than your own have you gifted most often? Gifted or recommended most often?
Ken Wilber's A Brief History of Everything.
Why?
It really helped me understand the problems of humanity right now. Yeah.
Number 5. So you travel a ton. What's one travel hack? Something you do, or maybe something you take with you when you travel to make your travel less painful or more enjoyable?
I'm sort of an avid biohacker, so I bring a lot of supplements. I feel they really help me. So anywhere from vitamins to all sorts of amino acids and things to help you sleep and fix your jet lag, like melatonin. And I think it really helps.
Caffeine or no caffeine?
Oh, yes, caffeine.
What's your preferred method of delivery?
Coffee and then matcha.
Number 6. What's one thing you've started or stopped doing in order to live or age well?
I have started since I love biohacking, I've started taking Bacopa at night.
What is that?
Bacopa is a Himalayan herb that is most typically used for by Buddhist monks, actually, to stay awake. It's a great neural enhancer. But I have a friend who is working with Stanford researchers on telomeres, extending telomeres, your DNA strands, that supposedly is the key to longevity. And taking Bacopa is effective in extending your telomeres.
Interesting. Where do I get my hands on some of that?
It's very cheap. You can get it. It's the company is called Himalayan Herbs, I think.
And how do we spell Bacopa?
Bacopa.
Just like it sounds. Okay. What's one thing you wish every American knew?
Good question. That our democracy is at great risk right now. And the promise of this country is yet to be fully realized, and it's in great danger right now.
And what is your recommendation, given that risk, given that reality? What's your recommendation or your exhortation, to use a $5 word, for people?
Vote. Vote, and also organize, educate, communicate, connect with each other, surprise yourself in reaching out to the other side. And I think, and also, for humanity in general, I think we put our belief in technology too much, and there still needs to be this human consciousness evolution. I think technology is only as useful for the positive sense when it grows or evolves in tandem with human consciousness. And we tend to sort of look at technology, just very naively as the answer to all our problems. So, this is, I've been very much getting into blockchain, its potential. I think there's a lot of naivete around blockchain, to be honest, in that again, we're like putting all our eggs in the blockchain basket, like that's going to solve all our problems, all this kind of stuff. But there's not enough understanding that actually, decentralized cooperatives have actually existed in America, in Europe, and these are analog decentralized. I mean, in some ways, America democracy is pretty decentralized as compared to European democracies, yet we don't realize this value and take advantage of it. And so in many ways, we need to strengthen what's right and try to understand how to fix the things that are wrong. But even just understanding what's right and wrong is an educational challenge,
Yeah, for sure. Especially because people's perspectives on that differ so much, right? Okay. Number 8, what's one piece of advice that your parents have given you that has made an impact on you or stayed with you?
I think my parents were a great part of my success in that they were always supportive of what I did. And so that in itself, I realize, a lot of people don't have. And so I feel I'm very lucky in that way. Yeah, I have a lot to thank from my parents. So,
what is your next big project?
So, people ask me that a lot, and there's really nothing more that excites me than growing Bella Gaia. Like, Bella Gaia is the culmination of my visual passions with film, my musical passions with composition of music, and my live performance passions, which brings that sort of real human ritual component and the power. There's nothing more powerful than a live experience. So I basically want to continue to scale this. The most common comment I get after Bella Gaia shows, "Oh my God, everybody in the world needs to see this." And so it has been, that's the next step, is how can I scale Bella Gaia? It's gone 10 years growing and evolving from just me performing this solo to now an ensemble of dancers and live musicians, planetarium shows, the VR thing. But it's mostly been in the art world. We tour to performing art centers. But it really, to scale, it needs to enter now the entertainment business. So it has been the plan to how can I, on a production side, make Bella Gaia an entertainment product that is now more competitive with like Broadway or Cirque du Soleil. So that means raising the production value in the way that we give people the experience. The overview effect doesn't change. It's more the live performance and dance components where we visit different countries around the world and have this cultural exploration. But I've developed a holographic projection method of interactive holograms with dancers.
No big deal. I've just developed this hologram. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Tell me about, how did that happen?
That happened through, again, an invitation from the Dean of Arts and Sciences at the University of Colorado Boulder. Ironically, it wasn't because I was alumni or anything. I was performing at this science conference for the executive board for CU Boulder, and the dean came up to me and asked, "We've never had an artist in residence, but would you be our first artist in residence for us?" Wow. Just write a proposal on whatever I wanted to do. And basically it was like, I've always wanted to develop an R&D, a holographic projection system and methodology and the creative direction behind that. So that's what I did for 2 years, was developing this R&D of holograms interacting with dancers and performers. And we presented it at the Conference on World Affairs in April of last year. And actually somebody from Cirque du Soleil's innovation department was there and said, "This is beyond even what we're doing."
Wow.
And certainly, we've seen holograms enter the entertainment space. I think Beyonce had, some holograms that are in some concerts, but nothing yet to the sort of detailed, refined interaction and storytelling that we're developing. So what our holograms are doing is real interaction, but with a story. We've seen a lot of eye candy, a lot of playing around, but nobody yet developing things around a meaningful story. And so this is super exciting. You can see actually a 3-minute video on our site. If you go to holograms on bellagaia.com, you can see a sample. So basically, I want to combine these holograms in a dome to tell the whole Bella Gaia story. And so this is what we want to scale up as a production in a destination, a location-based entertainment venue that we run ourselves, like a Cirque du Soleil tent. We run our own theater. People come to us. We have daily shows. That is a ticket revenue model that can scale. I totally believe that this will be a legacy hit show. I mean, if you think of The Lion King, for example, 25 years, it's the same show every day, 2,000 people sold out. I mean, it's pretty incredible how many people over 25 years have now experienced, Lion King.
Yeah.
What if we could do that with a transformative story? I think people are hungry for something more, timely and more meaningful, more deeper. And what if we could attach to that entertainment show a way for people to actually get involved and act? And that is also the whole back end that we want to develop. Is as another thing and problem right now with Bella Gaia is after the show, everyone's like jumping off the walls, like, what can I do? I mean, sure, I can give them a list of things to do, but what if we could actually create through blockchain applications very easy ways to make change in the world and verify that change, so people have this sense of agency that they can make a difference. That's also part of the problem is, I can never make a difference with climate change. It's too big. It's hopeless. It's this sort of fatalist mentality. And I think, that's part of the problem. We need to give people this feeling that they can make a difference, and they are making a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it is a form of insanity at some level that we know that we've created this as a collective. As a group of individuals, it's happened, yet we'll sit back and say, well, I'm just one person. What I do doesn't matter. It's like, it's like, damn it, So I totally get that. Well, so I do have a few more questions for you about your creative process. But before we turn to that, I want to make sure we get this in here. If people want to learn more from you or connect with you, what should they do?
Email me. I try to reply to every email I get. Kenji at bellagaia.com, KENJI at BELLAGAIA.com. Or come to one of our shows. We have a big tour lined up already for this coming winter and spring. You can find it on our events page.
Yep. And this is 2018 as we record. We're in December of 2018 as we record. This will probably be released in January of 2019, just to give people an understanding when they're listening to this.
So yeah, we have February shows, April shows. A lot happening. June in Houston, I think. Yeah.
That's great. And they can find, as we've talked about already, some of your videos on YouTube. They can also find your music in iTunes.
Yes.
And elsewhere online.
Yes.
I'm sure. Awesome. So I also, to be sure that I communicate this to you before our time is up, I want to let you know that as an expression of gratitude to you, Kenji, for making time to talk with me and share your wisdom and your experience with everyone listening, that I have gone online through kiva.org, where I have a lending team, and I have made a $100 microloan to a female entrepreneur named Saraswati, who lives in Nadia, India. Turns out this is a 29-year-old married woman who's raising a household of 3, and her monthly income is only about $120. So I believe she'll be able to make a significant difference in the life of herself, her family, her community, because she'll use this money to help expand her clothing business by purchasing an additional stock of shirts and pants and things. So wanted to express my gratitude to you in that way.
Oh, you just gave me chills. Amazing. Thank you for what you're doing. Yeah.
No, it's my pleasure. Okay, so the last part of this I want to turn to is just a few questions, as I said, about your creative process. I've got, as I was zeroing these questions in yesterday, I was like, man, we could do a whole interview just on this. But let me start by asking you, because you're such a multifaceted artist, you know, music and visuals, like you said, and you've done stuff with the spoken word and you do things around the world. What's a typical day for you like?
It's very boring. It's a lot of emails and communication. Yeah, I mean, you know, actually these days the life of an artist is mostly managing, and your creative time is quite little. But yeah, my creative time is in bursts. You know, like it is centered around projects, and so most of my time is coordinating schedules, emails, management, and writing proposals.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's probably the less sexy side, but a critical side if the work is to reach an audience, right? And I actually think of a metaphor that I saw when my dad spent a whole bunch of money to build a motorsports park, a big race, you know, a place for cars and motorcycles to drive. And I saw this thing that people who were extraordinarily talented racers, it actually didn't matter how good they were if they couldn't find sponsorship, right? Then they couldn't find the money they needed to get on the track to support the cars, you know, and motorcycles and stuff like that. And I think art is in some ways the same way, where maybe that model of a patron, you know, the artist and the patron, whether the patron is a general public buying tickets or books, really hasn't changed a lot. But how do you think about that and also balance your creative time? If it takes both the administrative and the creative, how do you not let the management impinge on the creative, and how do you think about that kind of patron model that I just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge sort of switching, you know, modes from left brain to right brain, right? You know, I definitely need time to switch to a more creative mode. I sometimes just dedicate the whole day to that, or a series of days.
When you do that, what does it look like? Do you work alone? Do you start early? Do you brew tea? Do you what is it? You know, what do you do?
I mean, I have to be alone. And it's challenging. I'm a father. I have two young kids. So there's a lot of juggling going on. And also when I do travel a lot, so that actually does help me in sort of finding a different mental space. So I do find myself creative a lot on the plane or when I'm traveling. So that really helps. And also when you do collaborate with other artists, you're now creating like a dedicated space and time with a deliverable. You know, you're also taking other people's time. So that really is a great way to create focus, you know, and focusing with other artists. There's just something really amazing about that. On the funding end, I mean, that is just always the challenge, right? I mean, I think I was very lucky at the start of this in winning actually not just one $50,000 grant, but two of them. So it was a total $100,000, which got me off the ground. And then we ended up, I didn't mention this, but we ended up winning a NASA grant, a $500,000 NASA grant to use Bella Gaia for K through 12 education for kids. Wow. It took 4 tries applying through the NASA portal. These are 100-page proposals each. I mean, amazing. It's no joke, but we won. And frankly, this was the most artistic, you know, based program that NASA's ever funded. And then the administration changed and the education budget dried up. So since then, we have, you know, I've basically grown Bella Gaia just from booking fees and then occasional commissions from universities, occasional small grants here and there. And we just set up our 501c3, Beautiful Earth Foundation. So we are going to start to put energy into that in building out a board and fundraising through that. And then there's the for-profit side. Now we have a business plan for a Bella Gaia LLC, which is going to be created. And also I am partnering with this amazing Japanese company that does exhibits, like immersive exhibits, projection mapped exhibits. They're called Naked Incorporated, and they do these amazing all nature-based themes. The most famous one is called Flowers. So it's whole sort of walk-through exhibit of digital flowers, physical flowers, like just everything you can imagine. It
sounds amazing. Where can we see that?
If you maybe Google Flowers Naked Tokyo, some videos might come up.
I'll bet some interesting things will come up with that search. By the way.
Yeah, I think their homepage is let's see, Naked Inc. Oh, Naked Inc.
Okay.
Yeah. If you do Naked Inc., yeah, I mean naked.com or something else.
But no, that sounds amazing. And my wife is a master gardener, and we've actually gone to the Chelsea Royal Flower Show before.
Okay.
So I'll bet this would be amazing. It sounds cool.
So these guys, I mean, they get 100,000 people coming through a month. So this is actually a really great combination package that I'm wanting to bring to the US is a Bella Gaia theater surrounded by a Naked Flowers exhibit. So
sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a really great partnership.
Yeah, and Kenji, one thing you didn't say, so I'll go ahead and say it. And again, you can add to this or correct anything that I might get wrong. But Bella Gaia and you have won Science Media Awards, the Fisk Full Dome Film Festival, the My Hero Award, the Macau International Full Dome Festival, the Transformational Film Festival. You've been at Sundance, right? I mean, this is not like just your kind of side project, as people who've listened all the way to this point know. But what they might not know is like this thing really is freaking awesome. And if they get a chance or make the time, exert the effort to go see it, I think they'll love it.
I think so too. It really always surprises people past their expectations. It's hard sort of separating our image from, it's another environmental film or something like that. It's completely different, and it is deep. It is a journey. It is uplifting as well as meaningful, and so it is a prerequisite to a future culture. And I think everybody should see it, be inspired by it, and yeah, I'd love to meet you there.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so the very last couple questions, I want to turn in a very intentionally turn our thinking, and Kenji, I'm kind of enlisting your help in even formulating the question to ask, which is, if you now imagine the people listening to this who are maybe working in a 9-to-5, maybe they don't have a job, maybe they're a stay-at-home parent, maybe they've done charitable or philanthropic work to this point, but they know they want to use their strengths, gifts, and talents in service to others, doing what they love, probably through some kind of creative expression. But for whatever reason, financial or just they haven't had confidence in themselves, or maybe they've been told that to do something practical or whatever. What kind of advice do you give to somebody who has this? They've maybe even felt this calling for years, but they haven't followed it. Like, what kind of encouragement or advice do you have for them? What should they do? What should they definitely not do?
Just do it and never give up. I mean, those are the two recommendations I can give. If you feel this calling and have these fears of, how am I going to make money? How will I support myself? These are really just constructed fears. If you truly believe in what you want to do, there has to be a point where you have to take that risk. And it's not an easy path. My life is not easy. I'm not independently wealthy. I took a lot of risks. It's up and down. But at least I will die knowing that I did my passion. I followed my passion in my life. I will have a sense of self-worth. I will feel satisfied if I die tomorrow. And that's how I live my life is, I might die tomorrow. What do I want to do? I think that's how everyone should live their life. And so, don't waste your life. If you're not happy with your job, quit and do what you want to do. Follow your passion. Don't give up. It won't be easy, but and it's never a straight line, but I would just say follow and listen to your feelings and your emotion and your deep sense of motivation. Meditate and understand where you want to go, what your true self is telling you. If you truly do want to live a fulfilling life, and if just making money is your passion, then that's fine. So just follow your passion and don't give up.
I love that advice, and I love what you say about it's not a straight line, right? Because that's part of the magic and sometimes the misery of the creative process is that it's definitely not a linear thing. But you mentioned the word passion, and that's something I used to encourage people a lot as well, and I still am a proponent of. But what I've discovered is that some people find that to be kind of a heavy word. They're like, "What if I don't know my passion?" Or how will I know? How can I find out what my passion? Or I have a lot of passions. Like I'm just so curious. Like what do you say to somebody that responds with something like that? Like passion's not actually a useful, piece of the advice. What do you say then?
What tickles your fancy? Yeah. Try whatever interests you have, try it. If it's pottery, try a little pottery, and if you like it, keep going forward with that. I think it is really, you never know, you can never preconceive everything anyway. And finding your passion is the journey. That is the joy of life, is finding your passion. And when I first met Mike Fink, it was just a feeling. I didn't know what it would be. I never realized it would be like a career in delivering the overview effect to people. But it was just this sort of feeling inside of me and a drive. And I guess part of that is more on a deeper level as a human being more in touch with yourself. If you're completely disconnected from yourself, well, then yeah, you won't be able to listen to yourself or listen to your own, your own feelings. And so part of this is self-development of meditating, I guess, or finding your own way of therapy. For me, the opening of the door was psychedelics, the kind of the rave culture of the 90s, the dancing, and trance-induced collective feeling of being one with a bunch of people in an ecstatic state. These sorts of things allow you to go deeper into yourself and to really find your true spirit, I think.
Yeah.
So it is an internal journey to find your passion, I think. So
yeah, I think so. Tell me about if you ever had a moment where, because I've had this and I've talked to other people who've actually had this as like a moment where it got like it became very clear that there are certain people who will lift me up and certain people who will like bring me down. And if I want to go a certain place, it's going to be conducive to me getting there, to consciously surround me with a certain kind of people, or even in some cases a certain person, and to let go of or diminish other relationships. I know that's kind of an abstract thing, but I'm wondering how, like, first of all, if you ever had a specific instance where that became clear to you, and second, like if that would factor into any advice you would give people also who want to be or who maybe already are on a creative path about a community or relationships deliberately, It's
all about relationships and surrounding yourself with the right people, and that is the only way how Bella Gaia has survived this long. It's not like I've had a regular patron. This is my team is still with me after 10 years because of relationships, because of healthy relationships. And that's both personal and financial. You have to have good business relationships, but also good personal, and sort of have this emotional intelligence and social intelligence. and certainly surrounding yourself with other inspiring people who uplift you is so much a part of it. Just if someone's bringing you down or just mocking you or making bad jokes about you, just leave them. I mean, there's no purpose for them to be in your life, and so you have to surround yourself with good people. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is my last question. But what I really want to know also is how, because I heard you talk about yourself. You're like, well, I'm just a person. I never give up. And in some way, like, it's admirable, but in some ways, I think for people listening, it's not useful because they might be like, well, that's him, but that's not me, right? So maybe what could be useful is, how do you manage your own psychology, right? Like, how do you preserve, however you would term it, remain an optimist, preserve enthusiasm, like get up, pick yourself up when you're down. Like, what kinds of things do you do, consciously or even naturally, that weren't necessarily conscious, that help you to really effectively manage your state?
Yeah, it's really tough sometimes. It's really about these relationships. It's if you're feeling down or hopeless, if you have established these relationships with other people who will come back to you with a piece of news that you had talked about earlier, and there will be more, you're sort of like spreading your good intentions among more people that will later come back to you in a time of need. And so that, I think, really has been critical for me. And this also comes in the form of business. I may put out a proposal or a request. In the interim, I feel really bad through something else. And then maybe when that proposal is successfully come back, it helps. Of course, most proposals are denied, which, people should get used to. Like, literally, this is the artist's life. Get ready to receive a no answer most of the time, like 80-90% of the time. It's hard. So you have to get used to no most of the time. So it really is so important to believe in yourself, to know that you are doing the right thing and that you are talented. And here's the thing, okay, I'm going to bring up Trump, okay, because as controversial as he is, as much problems as he's creating, I do find inspiration in one thing that he does, which is he is able to convince people of anything.
Oh yeah.
He is a very good convincer.
And why do you think that is?
I mean, he has re-engineered his brain to literally believe in anything. And the problem is, I don't think most humans are like that. But we can take inspiration from, when you talk to people, you have to put on this confident feeling, and you have to know it and feel it. And Trump is so good at that. I mean, he's sort of ingrained into his DNA, even if it's completely false.
Yeah. I mean, just yesterday, that thing about his words, the beautiful, clean coal industry. Right. I'm like, that's such an oxymoron. That's like jumbo shrimp, that's not even a thing. But the thing, and I love what you're saying too, because I think this is something I teach and I'm fascinated by, is that we ultimately believe whatever it is we believe because we choose to, but most people don't choose their beliefs consciously. Right. And when we choose our beliefs consciously, we live a different life, or it's possible we can do it at any moment. But going back to what you were saying about rejection, because I think this is one of those almost paradoxes, but it's also a place that exposes that ability to be conscious in our choices, which is this: asking, realizing that a majority of these asks are going to be declined. But nevertheless, asking with the expectation of a yes, right? Because I think, and I know this is a little bit maybe metaphysical, but if somebody asks expecting to be shot down, more likely to be shot down, right? So how do you ask with the expectation of a yes while you have the awareness that the statistics are, the majority of these are going to be declined?
You have to really make sure that you're in check, that put things in perspective. It's hard because you have this like dream, and if we just get this, then this can happen, and I really want to do it. And so I obviously get down if there's a rejection of something I really care about, of course. But you have to always like get back up on your feet. It's a new day every day. And smile. I mean, actually scientists have proven that just physically smiling actually does change your brain.
It does. Yeah, your physiology. Absolutely.
So you have to figure out some tricks that will sort of get you out of this. I mean, for me, yoga really helps. Exercise really helps. And I mean, my two daughters just are completely full of life and uplift me. Really surrounding people that love you in your life is critical.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. Let me ask if you ever have this experience, because I see this as I observe myself, and it actually bothers me a little bit, which is when I receive good news, like something that pleases me, and then I feel good. I feel good like reactively. I'm like, oh yeah, that proposal, that I got that deal closed or whatever, that good thing happened. And then I feel good. And then I actually hate that I feel good because I hate that my emotional response is dependent upon something that happened. Do you ever have that?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of verging on a little bit over analytical, like analyzing yourself, but I do know what you're talking about. Yeah,
because in the same way, like if you feel down because something didn't go your way, the inverse of that is just feeling good because something did go your way. And I find myself going, I want to be free from both. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm wondering if you ever have that experience.
That dualistic, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the challenge and goal is to detach yourself personally from your projects.
Yeah, not always easy, right? Especially when you've invested years and years in this. Yeah. But who was it that said high intention, low attachment? Something like that?
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful.
That'll be my new t-shirt.
Okay. You can put it on the back. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, Kenji, this has been so awesome. I really appreciate you making time to talk with me and to share, like I said, your wisdom and your experience and to allow us all along on the creative journey that you're on. I've had so much fun.
I've had a blast. Yeah.
It's a privilege
really to know you. Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor to be here and really great conversation and inspiring talking to you. And this has been really fun.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. And to everybody listening, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really hope that you connect with Kenji and see a show of Bella Gaia. I believe for you, as it has for me, it will change your life. It was, like I said, 2 minutes on a VR headset in a garage, and I knew it was something I wanted to share with other people. I want to experience it in a dome. I hope you do too. I hope that you've taken something away from this that you will apply in your own creative pursuits to make the difference that you're capable of making. So with that, I'll say thank you for listening, and until next time, everybody take care. Despite living in an age where we have more comforts and conveniences than ever before, life isn't working for many people. Whether it's in the developed world, where we're dealing with depression, anxiety, addiction, divorce, jobs we hate, relationships that don't work, or people in the developing world who don't have access to clean water or sanitation or healthcare or education, or who live in conflict zones, there's a lot of people on the planet that life isn't working very well for. If you're one of those people, I invite you to connect with me at goodliving.com. I've created Life's Best Practices Breakthrough Coaching to help you navigate the transitions that we all go through. Whether you've just graduated school, you're going through a divorce, you just got married, you're headed into retirement, you're starting a business, you just lost your job, whatever it is you're facing, I've developed a 36-week course that you go through with me and a community of achievers and seekers who are committed to improving their own lives and the lives of others. So through this online program, you will have the opportunity to go deep into every area of your life, explore life's big questions, create answers for yourself in community, get clarity and accountability. If that's something you're interested to learn about, I invite you to contact me directly at brian@brianmiller.com or by visiting goodliving.com.